Time the Jazz draft team drilling down on lots and lots of video and information. Dozens of young, talented kids have been evaluated. Jazz, of course, have the 14th and 21st picks in the first round of Thursday's NBA draft. And they have Hall of Famer Jerry Sloan on board to help them. But in a curious twist, one of Jerry's first areas of concern since joining the Jazz as a senior advisor seems to be keeping the heat off Jazz head coach Tyrone Corbin.
I think he did a terrific job keeping guys together in a tough situation. Guys with free agent contracts, all those sort of things. People think that's just walk out there and it happens. It doesn't happen that way. It takes a lot of patience to understand that and deal with it. And I thought he did a terrific job. I didn't think he was treated fairly by the press, if you want to know my feeling, as time was going by. And I think he deserves better than that.
Not surprising that the Hall of Famer is immediately standing up for his successor. Happy to have the voice of the Jazz, David Locke, in with us. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Tom. I think Jerry was a young coach once, too.
Absolutely, and he didn't have the benefit of a Hall of Famer backing him early. So what did you think when you heard Jerry go right after Ty's critics?
Well, I think, one, I think he was right. I think Jerry's right. And two, I think Jerry sees more than the rest of us, right? So I think Jerry really may have understood when some players were breaking sets to get themselves a look here or there, some of the other things that we wouldn't notice, and I think Jerry understands how difficult it is to hold a locker room together. So, and Jerry was fired as a young coach in Chicago before he got a chance to prove himself, and later became a great Hall of Fame coach. I think you put all those together, nothing was surprising there.
Yeah, and a subtle, deft move. He also made it clear that Ty's the guy, and Jerry's just
you don't have to worry about that with Jerry.
Yeah, of course. Okay, in the history of the Jazz franchise, rarely have they had this much money to work with, assets to wheel and deal or put in place, and roster spots open. The beginning of this mega team building is coming Thursday night, the NBA draft. Can you describe how excited Jazz fans are for this draft, and are the expectations at all realistic?
Well, I think last time we were here, Jody Gennessy and I talked about engagement. We all want something we can grab onto. So this is the beginning of our engagement. Now, how excited can you be? There's a lot of pieces that have to come, and I don't think there's a franchise-changing piece that happens on Thursday unless there's some magic out of Dennis Lindsey's and Kevin O'Connor's hat that I'm unaware of.
Yeah, but still buzz at 14, 21, and 46. A lot to talk about in the coming days, as we've been doing for the last 6 weeks. All right, we're talking all about the numbers 14 and 21, and don't forget the Jazz have a decent second-round pick coming as well. Jeremiah, as usual, doing the digging, and joins us now with some of the memorable names behind those numbers 14 and 21.
Yeah, we found some big names. The Jazz have been working furiously preparing for the draft on Thursday. Nearly 70 players have auditioned recently. When you know the odds of finding an impact player at 14 and 21, you'll understand why. It's difficult, but history teaches us it can be done.
3-on-1 to Ames. Right side, Drexler. Slam dunk, cloud to cloud.
The greatest 14th pick of all time? That's an easy one. Clyde Drexler, a 10-time All-Star, a member of the Dream Team, NBA champion, and Hall of Famer.
The killer crossover. Oh, brother. Hardaway leaving Stockton in the dust.
Tim Hardaway used his killer crossover to make 5 All-Star teams in his 13-year NBA career and was first-team All-NBA in 1997.
Lang sees Marley alone.
Thunder Dan Marley was a 3-time All-Star with the Phoenix Suns and a key member of some very good Miami teams in the late 90s.
Pages to Stojakovic. Fake right to left to the base. Fall away jump shot. Good. Stojakovic.
The Kings took Pages Stojakovic at 14 in 1996. He became a 3-time All-Star, 40% three-point shooter, and 90% free throw shooter in an 11-year NBA career. Maurice Lucas was a 5-time All-Star during his 12-year career and helped lead the Portland Trail Blazers to the 1977 NBA title. Like Drexler, Hal Greer is a Hall of Famer, a 10-time All-Star, NBA champion, and one of the 50 greatest players of all time. An impressive list, but just 6 All-Stars ever picked 14th in the draft. The odds are worse for 21. In NBA history, just 2 players ever chosen 21st overall have been named All-Stars more than once.
Down to 3, pass up top to Rondo, puts up another 3. Bang! Rajon Rondo again!
Rajon Rondo is a 4-time All-Star and NBA champion. He has 27 career triple-doubles. And Michael Finley was a 2-time All-Star in his 15-year NBA career and won an NBA title with the San Antonio Spurs.
And of course, we can't forget about the second round. The Jazz had the 46th pick in the draft, and Danny Green, San Antonio Spurs, who was actually picked by Cleveland. He was a second-round pick, 46th, and of course, the greatest 46th pick of all time, Jeff Hornacek. So we know that you can find a good player in the second round, and the Jazz have proven that, Dave.
It's unlikely, though. Frankly,
Yeah,
most of my research is from 97 on, and I didn't see many players there. It's interesting how much better the scouts have gotten over the years, because those guys, Maurice Lucas and all the others, those are older players. Yeah. Those mistakes aren't happening by GMs very often anymore.
No, they don't miss much. All right, thanks a lot, Jeremiah. All right, time to go on the clock right here. We see almost all the mock drafts have the Jazz going point guard at number 14, Shane Larkin, a very popular pick there. Is that what you see? Is that the real value at number 14, or is it another spot maybe?
Well, let's go back to where Jeremiah just had us, Tom, and that is that if you look at every draft from 97 to 2008, where I've done my research, okay, only 50% of the picks in the first round from 11 to 30 become rotation players.
Wow.
Okay, 50% of the picks never make a rotation. One scout said to me about this draft, everyone can bang on this draft about how bad it is. Stop looking at them as starters. Start looking at them as rotation players. You'll begin to like them. When you start doing that, I think it changes the way maybe you look at 14 for the Utah Jazz.
Okay, so we'll talk about point guards in a minute, but let's get to the bigs. Even though the Jazz seem to be mostly set with their bigs, with Cantor and Favors, obviously, they always need depth and rotation guys. Give us 4 of the big guys on the draft radar.
Well, I think if you start...
Kelly Olynyk, obviously, from Gonzaga.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, because you look at... what's so interesting, we'll run through some names here, and they're so different. I can't imagine being the GM who has to make this decision. So we've got Olynyk, and BYU fans know him. He got Brandon Davies into foul trouble early in that game. He's a refined product. He's 22 years old. He's 7 feet tall. He's maybe able to shoot as well as him, become like a Ryan Anderson, but he has no athleticism. When he comes into the lane, he's not elevating over one. He's got short arms. He lacks some physical tools, and so you project him as maybe a 25-minute-a-night guy in the NBA, probably not going to be a primary starter star in this league, but maybe pretty darn ready to play.
18 points and 7 boards in just 26 minutes a game for Gonzaga. He led the nation in PER, which is a valuable stat for scouts, so we'll see about that. Obviously a ready player. What about 7'2" Rudy Gobert? Here's a guy who has been up and down boards all over the place, and his body says he's ready, but what about the rest?
Well, this is one I don't know how you pass on him if you're a GM. I got to figure he's going to go. He's 7'2". Yeah. If he stands underneath the basket and reaches straight up, there's only 3 inches to the rim. Oh. He's unbelievably long. He's got a chance to be one of the great defensive players in the league. He's 7'2". His dad was a French pro, so he comes from a basketball background, and he has no offensive game. You're seeing the highlights right here, and they're dunks. If you made him shoot free throw line jumpers and gave him 20 free throw line jumpers, he'd probably make 7 or 8. Does he learn that one day? That's the gamble you're taking.
All right, now we haven't seen him tested, but we know Pittsburgh's Steven Adams played in the Big East. He has a 7'1" New Zealander with an NBA body. I've seen him as high as 13th to Dallas, but an NBA body. But I mean, like, again, we'll see him dunking, but not much else.
But look at this body. I mean, he's 19 years old, maybe 20. He's 7'1". He can run like a deer. Again, it's the complete paradox to what Kelly Olynyk is. This guy in Gobert, every single one of the physical tools are there. Can they develop around it? Whereas Olynyk lacks some of the physical tools, but he's got the game smarts and the experience. But this is, again, lacking some offensive skills, but he's a big guy. He can run. If you watch Pittsburgh games, he just simply outran guys at 7'1", which scouts look at, and it's pretty hard to pass on the possibility.
Yeah, and banging in the Big East tells guys something about his ability to step up.
He's big.
Yeah.
I mean, Gobert's still got to grow. This guy doesn't need to grow any. He's all there at that age. New Zealand guy, little quirky, so we'll see how that plays out.
Kiwi, give him a break. ESPN's Chad Ford with this latest mock, kind of a blockbuster, a stunner, has the Jazz taking Brazilian Lucas Nogueira Bebe at number 14. Where'd he come from?
Well, a year ago, I think people thought he'd be a top 5 pick. Right. He kind of came on the scene. Everyone's very, very excited about him. This year, he went and picked up to a higher level of competition and did not have a good year. maybe that's not surprising. He's pretty raw, and so if you're a scout and you just a year ago loved him, why wouldn't you still love him? The fact that he struggled at this young age with this inexperience doesn't necessarily mean that you should suddenly stop liking him. So that's why he would fit there. He did come in. The Jazz had him in for a workout with those numerous other players, but he was injured, and they didn't get to see a lot of him up close and personal.
Clearly, he is a force, at least in your head. If you're going down the lane, you know he's there. My question is, why would the Jazz be looking big if you already have Favors and Cantor? You guys, I know you need rotation guys, but it's an interesting idea that you'd bring those guys. Maybe we're talking 14 or 21 with those guys.
Well, I mean, I think some of those guys might be at 21.
Right.
I think that's part of, Dennis Lindsey in all of his interviews has talked a lot of if this, then that. And I think that's going to be one of their main exercises they have to figure out is what is this draft board going to do and where are guys going to be available. But they need players, and if you don't look at these players as starters and you look at them as rotation players, then that third big is just as important as a backup point guard.
Right, no doubt. All right, speaking of backup point guards, it's time to look at the draft point guards. Shane Larkin, penciled in across most of the mocks, is coming to the Jazz at 14. Came in, impressed us all. What a great soundbite. What a great kid. The son of Cincinnati Reds superstar baseball player Barry Larkin. He seems to have it all, although 5'11", I don't know, super quick though.
More than 5'11". 5'11" wingspan.
Right.
Okay, so...
And he may not be 5'11". I mean, he goes by like 5'10", 5'9", maybe.
If you look in the NBA, and there's never been, ever, any player in the Combine who became an NBA player with 5'11" with an under 6-foot wingspan. Right. It hasn't existed.
But a 44-inch vertical.
Right. So is his speed going to overcome his physical deficiencies? And the other one is, name the under 6 feet tall point guards. The best you can come up with is kind of a Damon Stoudemire, but otherwise you're talking about J.J. Barea and those type of guys. He's got, you can see on the highlights, he's got a little chutzpah to him. He's got a little this and that. He may turn Miami into a winner. He's got that element to him, but his physical limitations are really severe.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. Dennis Schroeder, speaking of limitations, I mean, 6'2", really skinny, the kid from Germany. We had a fascinating translation that our Mike Grant, who served his mission in Germany, managed to get some interesting stuff from Schroeder in his native language. I actually got a smile from him. But he can do a lot of things for you, but he's, again, not a finished product by any stretch.
Again, we're almost right back where we were with Kelly Olynyk compared to the other bigs, right? Shane Larkin has got the physical limitations, but he's got the established game. Here's a kid who's 19. In the Nike Hoop Summit, he wowed people, but that's not against a structured defense. He's really dominant right hand with very little left hand. There's some character questions out there on him, but he's got a burst. He's got a speed burst.
Not a shooter.
Not yet. You would hope he maybe develops. But he's got the speed burst. He might be the one guy who has that speed, and he's got a 6'7" wingspan, which excites people. Okay, maybe at 21. We'll see. And then at 6 foot and 188 pounds, Isaiah Cannon, Murray State. A sleeper that a lot of people know about. Averaged 22 points. He's strong. He's got speed and deep range. I watched him a lot the last 3 nights. I've been kind of keeping an eye. I watched his Belmont game that went to overtime. They lose to tournament. I went back and watched him in the NCAA tournament the year before. I'm not sure why Shane Larkin is necessarily ahead of him on boards. I look at them. They're both similarly sized, but Cannon's got a wingspan. Cannon seems to me to be just as good a shooter as Larkin. Frankly, neither of them played a lot of defense in college because their coaches wanted them on the floor. It's kind of the Jimmer phenomenon all over again. And he seemed to have that same kind of strut to him. Both of them have their limitations in their size, but both of them can shoot. I kind of like this kid. I think he's someone we should keep an eye on. Okay, what about the idea of trading up, trading down, moving around? I mean, you obviously that we won't know anything until Thursday, but what's the buzz? It's a complicated, I mean, first question is there a guy out there in a draft that most people think is made of rotation players that you believe is really special? Exactly. Do you believe Michael Carter-Williams will be able to shoot well enough one day because he's the most ready point guard to be a starter for a good team if he could shoot? But if he can't shoot, he can't play. Right. So therefore, maybe it's not, that's too high a risk. Do you really believe in Oladipo or one of these top-level guys, and can you get there? You don't have a lot to trade. You can't trade a free agent, so there's only 5 players on the roster to trade. Cantor, Favors, and Hayward would probably be the #1 pick of this draft, so you move them off the board. The only guys you have to trade are Burks, an injured Marvin Williams, or Jeremy Evans, and I'm not convinced 14 and 21 can get you up. It may be a lot more difficult, as aggressive as the Jazz want to be, it may be a lot more difficult to get up than we realize. All right, we've worked you hard. Finally, Jazz fans should understand the starting point
point guard for next year will not come out of this draft. Throw out a couple of names who might be the starting point guard. It's a what, Jarrett Jack. It's maybe a Jose Calderon if they wanted to spend the money. There's Luke Ridenour, those guys.
So, well, those are the guys. There's two different ways to look at it. There's the free agents. Chris Paul looks like he's off the market. He wasn't coming anyway.
Right.
Jeff Teague is probably the next most high-profile free agent, but he's going to get matched by Atlanta, so he probably can take him off. So you're now looking for a veteran point guard who can hold down the fort for a year or two while fostering either this youngster we draft, whomever it may be, into a more significant role, or whoever else is the next one along. And the guys you mentioned are either going to be free agents and Calderon or Jack, or Luke Ridenour is an interesting case because Minnesota just has too many point guards, and they need to move J.J. Barea or Luke Ridenour, and Ridenour really fits what we're looking for, so maybe that's a possibility.
A lot of things up in the air. What is not up in the air is that you're going to have a great time on Thursday. It's live on 1280 The Zone, the draft. We look forward to your coverage.
Should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. We look forward. Folks at Ruby River want to make sure that you go in with a very full belly, and they have all kinds of things like good steaks. You know all about that. Make sure you stop in if you're out there, and you'll have another OGO bag, OGO.com. If you're out there and you want to go online, great travel bags, all kinds of things, fun stuff available. David Locke, again, great job. Thanks for coming aboard.
My pleasure.